Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Kiodiekin, KDK, and today we got a very special day. Just wanted to make sure all you guys had a nice Memorial weekend and you guys were able to celebrate peacefully. But today I've been trying to get this gentleman on my show for quite some time, actually for the past 5 months. I found out about his YouTube channel, just kind of surfing the web, and as you guys may not know, it's very hard to find other like-minded individuals, especially people who know exactly what they're talking about in the realm or world of tech. And so, if you guys have been following my channel for quite some time, obviously, you know I'm a hobby channel. And one of the things that makes people successful in their hobbies is being a well rounded individual so you can kind of understand how, a little bit of how everything works. So, today, my guest is Wilcreatives. Wilcreatives has currently about 3,100 subscribers. So, Will, go ahead and say hi to us, man. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, what's going on, Keo? I appreciate you for having me on to the show. Definitely, man. I know we've been trying to get together and do some things for a while. So, trying to open up those floodgates, man. I've been in tech for a long time. I actually started off as just kind of tinkering. I was a young wee lad, like most of us are. Started tinkering around with stuff around the house. I used to take apart, like the DVD players, anything I get my hands on. I would take it apart, put it back, and then put it back together just to try to see how things work. And I never forget, my mom brought me home my first computer. She used to work at Emory, and she had got this pre-built system that she brought home. Man, it was the best thing ever. That was back when we had dial-up modems that was pretty much coming up for the first time. So I can remember downloading Napster, waiting for 3 hours for one song to download, one MP3 file. So it was crazy. But ever since then, I've always been intrigued with tech, gameplay, all that different type of stuff, and started my YouTube channel around September 2018, and with that, I started off with some Alienware stuff,
Right.
just kind of ticking around, started doing some upgrades, and that kind of actually put me into the stratosphere of close to where I am now. So it started off with the Alienware upgrades, and then I started my first PC build, and now I'm on my sixth PC build. So I'm into custom building PCs and also doing tech reviews, game reviews, and stuff like that. And so and we're actually coming up on about 3,400 subscribers now. So
Oh, nice.
super stoked. Yeah, super stoked about that, and working to get to our first 5,000, and then from 5,000 to 10,000, and then you know how that goes. So, but yeah, man, I appreciate you for having me.
Yeah, man. One of the things that I always like to ask tech guys who are familiar with knowing how to build computers, is if you guys are in any of the forums, whether it's a arcade modding or knowing how to build a VPN, which is a virtual pinball machine, you can kind of have a lot of back and forth with guys. And what I've noticed is that a lot of people who are trying to build VPNs or mod computers to work with their arcade cabinets aren't really too technical, literally as far as how a lot of hardware may work or how you can get the best optimization for the cheapest price. But you can ask a guy who's familiar in the tech world, and they'll just say, "Oh yeah, you just have this and that, and this. You add a little bit of this and that." Because I talked to Will about it several months ago about video cards, and we talked about how I listened to a talk show where some guys were saying that they needed a 1080 Ti or 1080 graphics card to run VPN. And we were sitting there talking about the specs. You remember that conversation?
I remember that
The
conversation.
specs that, well, gee, you could get a 970 GTX video card or 980 or run them in SLI and get the same performance. And those two cards will cost you about $40 a piece. So you remember that conversation, right?
Yeah, I do, man. Yeah, it's like, man, you need a 1080 Ti to do what? Those cards come with 11 gigabytes worth of VRAM. It's like, why do you need that to run the VPNs? It
True.
doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, true. Because even right now, I'm using the 2080 RTX video card, and I was using was it Grand Theft Auto 5 in 4K, and it wasn't even using on Ultra wasn't. I think it was using about maybe 4 gigs. I think about maybe 4 gigs in total.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, and of course that's a game that's been around for a long time and it's been optimized. But that just goes to show, you still have some systems that finding a hard time to run GTA 5, at 4K.
okay.
And yeah, so yeah, and if anybody that didn't, now I know a lot of people. I saw these memes and stuff going around. It's like people are just now, downloading GTA 5. It's like, well, when it's free, yeah. It's like I never wanted to buy that game.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I used to be one of the guys. In fact, when Grand Theft Auto came out, I ordered the bundle, and I was standing in line to get it. I think that was back at GameStop in 2006 or so, 2007 when it first came out. And so I know for me, since there's so many games out, I stopped pre-ordering stuff, and I'm really cautious now about what I buy because sometimes you don't have enough time to play all these games. It really just get immersed into it.
Yeah, and you brought up something that's real. Yeah, I don't pre-order games any longer.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got burned. The last game I did that was Anthem.
Oh.
And of course, since you know anything about Anthem, now let me tell you, from a creative standpoint, Anthem was an awesome game.
Mm-hmm.
But from a what's the word I'm looking for? But just from being, you spend money like that, you have something that's complete.
Right.
And so when you get something that's still within beta that hasn't been completed yet, and it never gets completed, kind of rubs you the wrong way because you have a great idea, but then it's almost kind of like somebody woke you up in the middle of a dream and you're trying to remember what's happening and you never get to the point where you can actually remember everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the same thing. It's like the same thing that they did with Anthem. It's like you had a lot of parts of the game that wasn't optimized, and you had so many people that was playing it at first, and it was fun at first, but then developers kind of went off and started doing something else, and
right.
They moved on to Apex Legends, so it's kind of like
yeah, that was probably that was probably their secret version of a Kickstarter program. I know you're not too familiar with that in the retro gaming arcade community right now, but there's a lot of that going on where new companies are coming on and they're using Kickstarter programs to fund their work. And they're like, hey, we'll give you a discount now, if you buy now, and then later on in a few more months, it allows us to work on something a little better, so
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know your time's limited, so I want to kind of get right into the meat. We got to talk some PC stuff. So, are you team AMD right now or team Intel?
So I'm going to be honest, and this is no bias, okay? Hey, whenever somebody starts off like that, you know they're biased, right?
Yeah, man.
I'm just going to be honest. I've tried to. Well, okay. No, I can't say that I've tried.
Come on, spit it out.
I like Nvidia. Okay, and the reason why I like Nvidia is because they have a track record of when it comes to like their drivers and the games being optimized and stuff like that.
Right.
They're just. Obviously they're a bigger company. They have more money, more resources, and they actually spend their money in the right places when it comes to the developers and game, the software, companies, and they just spend their money more wisely, and they get their whatever features and stuff that they have, they do a really good job with advertising.
Now,
to get
now we're talking about the processors as far as the AMD versus Intel.
No, I was talking about the graphics cards.
Graphics cards. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Okay, so but are you talking about processors or are you talking about?
I'm talking about processors. You know what's going on, AMD and Intel right now.
Okay, so that's all right. So currently, right now, I am team AMD.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because you get way more value for the money that you spend. You also get actually more performance. People like you and I who don't just use our CPUs for gaming. We actually use our CPUs for a number of different things: multitasking,
Right.
video editing, you know, uh, like processing, doing tests, running benchmarks, all this different type of stuff. So for us, AMD, you know, you could get what 3700X for what, like 298. You could
Yeah.
get,
Some.
you know,
Yeah.
that's
Well, you could get with a discount too. I think you get the combo. I think it's like another $30 off at Micro Center.
yep, at Micro Center. So you're talking about 8 cores, 16 threads, with the IPC that is definitely compared. Well, in a lot of cases, it's actually better than a 9900K in certain instances when it comes to multitasking.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to gaming, obviously Intel, the gaming industry, when it comes to Intel and the software developers, Intel has a little bit of advantage when it comes to the actual programming, and also they have a single core speed advantage as well when it comes to gaming.
Right.
But here's the thing: even though you probably still have about maybe 60 to 70% of people who game, they game at 1080p,
Okay.
and as we know, 1080p actually uses the CPU a lot more than when it's compared to 1440p and 4K.
Right.
But what people do not realize is that there's more and more people are gravitating towards 1440p gaming. And when you start to get into 1440p, the gap closes
Mm-hmm.
between Intel and AMD when it comes to, you know, the actual gameplay performance. And so when you start talking about it, so if you have a 1440p monitor or if you have a 4K monitor, it would be a waste of money to buy Intel chip.
Right.
Period.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know for me, I mean, honestly, I just upgraded to my first AMD chip because I've never been Team AMD. I've always been Intel and Nvidia, and the only reason why I decided to upgrade now was because when I got there was a video I edited a few weeks ago. It was 2 hours and it was 4K 60 frames, and so it
Yep.
was. I was using a chip. A CPU that was made back in 2013. That was the Intel 4820. It was a quad core, 8 threaded. It was top of the line at that time, with a decent
Right.
motherboard and everything. So, but honestly, I can still be using it right now. I mean, I can record and stream in 4K and 4K 60 with my video card and everything. But when it came to rendering that particular video, it just wouldn't do it. I mean, Premiere was crashing. I know at one point it said it would take 8 hours to render. So I was like, you know what? I didn't want to spend too much money because it was still doing what I needed to do, but I just don't like to have that bottleneck. And plus, I have another computer that I built that I'm not even really using. So, but I do like what AMD is doing, and it does create some competition with Intel as far as the additional, the prices and the affordability that it'll give gamers in the market.
Right. And so, and now that you said that, I'm gonna tell you, AMD is doing something very special right now. I saw Linus. They actually, it was kind of funny because I saw Linus. They actually did they did a video saying that AMD dropped their prices on the 3900X, and I'm
Hmm.
like, prices. I don't know if they just decided just to make that video, but the price of the 3900X has been. It used to be a $500 chip because when I bought it back in December, 3900X, 12 cores, 24 threads. It was a $500 CPU at that time, but now you can actually get that CPU from Micro Center for, I want to say, $399,
Three
if I'm
ninety
not
nine.
mistaken.
And how much was
Yeah.
Linus saying it cost?
Well, he said that it's around about the same price, but he was saying that like AMD just decided to do that, but they dropped the price of that chip a long time ago.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's been like a few months now. So I don't know. I don't know if it was one of those situations where he was just trying to make a video or
Hmm.
what.
Well, you
that
know,
actual
another thing
chip
is too is he's from Canada, so I don't know. Was he comparing American prices or Canadian prices?
that is a good question.
Because Canadian
That's a
prices are
very good
usually
question.
another 30% on top of what the U.S. price.
Right, right, and it could have been, it could have been, but all I know is that when you can get a 12 core 24 thread CPU
Mm-hmm.
for $400, I mean the thing is a beast. I
Right.
mean it'll handle anything that you throw at it. Gaming, multitasking, streaming. Definitely when it comes to video editing and all type of stuff,
Right.
it handles it. So, just for example, even like earlier today, I put up a new video. It's a 4K video of some gameplay that I was doing, and it was a 12-minute clip. 4K 60, 140. The bit rate was 140 megabits per second.
Mm-hmm.
I rendered the video within 20 minutes,
Okay.
which was actually, when you're talking about 4K 60 at that bit rate,
Right.
usually something like that would normally take, because we talked about some of the patches and enhancements that Adobe has done and stuff like that. But usually a 4K video like that would take maybe like 45 minutes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But
So
but
that just
why
shows
while you're on that
things.
topic, let's talk about what we talked about the other night. Remember about what the new update with Adobe Premiere?
Oh yeah,
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 we
yeah.
can't forget about that. I haven't seen many videos on this topic yet.
No, and I thought about doing a video on it too while we're talking about it. But yeah, that's one of those situations where, and I would now. Here's the thing: I actually want to get a AMD GPU,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm trying to wait for the new ones to come out because there's supposed to be some new ones that's supposed to come out in the next few months. It's supposed to be the RDNA 2.
Okay.
And so they're supposed to be not compatible, but they're supposed to be bringing competition to Nvidia's new GPUs. The Ampere GPUs is coming out, which I don't know if there is going to be competition. So I hope it is, because if it is competition, that means that the prices will be reasonable. But beyond that, they are supposed to come out with some new GPUs, and now with this new patch that Adobe came out with, it says that it will utilize the Nvidia and AMD GPUs a lot more. And so I definitely want, we talked about Nvidia. I think that day that we were talking about that, I was testing out a 1440p video,
Mm-hmm.
and it, like, Adobe Premiere used about 95% of my GPU, which I had never seen that before.
Yeah, and
When
that's
it
what
comes
those cards are
to
made to do.
hardware and quarter. Yeah. And you always wonder, like, okay, like, how long have you all? See, here's the problem that I have with that. I immediately kind of go back to, I don't know if Adobe has some sort of type of license or deal with Intel, but Intel has always been the go-to chip when it comes to video editing.
Right.
And one of the reasons why it was the go-to chip because of the Intel QuickSync.
Right.
And I don't know if you're familiar with QuickSync or not when it comes to Adobe Premiere, but it's real similar to how Nvidia has like the NVK encoder.
Mm-hmm.
The little, the chip that's on the inside that can actually be used for video encoding, and it doesn't take away from the actual performance of the card itself.
Okay.
Well, QuickSync was the same way when it came to Intel.
Mm.
So they had this built-in video, this built-in encoder that that could be able to use for video editing. So basically, it would render 1080p videos maximum with a maximum of 50 megabits per second. Is what it would max out at. But as long as you was doing 1080p video, you could render a video within no time.
Oh, nice.
And that's what people were using. So people were gravitating towards like, hey, get your $9,900K, you'll be good. You know, so when
True.
it comes to video editing and doing this different type of stuff. But if you started doing higher bitrate videos like 1440p and 4K, the quick sync really didn't work too well because it wouldn't give you the amount of bitrate needed for the resolution.
Right.
So it really didn't help you all that much when it came to doing those higher res videos. But if you was doing 1080p, then that would be kind of like your go-to chip for time versus performance. And
I
so,
see. Yeah, that's one of the things I noticed too. So, what was that? What was it? Adobe Premiere CC 20. It's 2020, but it's update 14.1 something or whatever. So I know
yeah,
Will sent me. He has his screenshots of it, and we're not talking about going to edit and preferences or right before you can start a video, you can select the Nvidia CUDA cores. We're actually talking about right when you export the video, when you scroll down in the encoder option, it lets you pick either hardware or software. You can see the Nvidia GPU setting.
yep,
And
yep, you sure
that's
can.
what's really making a difference. And it's interesting too because I know when I've talked to a lot of guys who've recently built computers and they're more or less looking at it from gaming, I'm like, there's a huge performance difference if you're using it for rendering either in Premiere or Adobe After Effects, and especially After Effects. That's a beast when it comes to getting some render times down. If any of you guys have seen my Supreme One Up video, I have a intro there. I think the intro is probably like a minute and 30 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, something like that. And that took me about almost 2 hours to render that in 4K.
Wow.
It was a huge file because you know when you output in After Effects, everything's going straight to an AVI file. I haven't found a way
Yep.
to
Yes.
put it at MP4. It doesn't let me, but it goes straight to an AVI file, and so you're
Mm-hmm.
just really stuck with that beast there. But rendering now, and that was with what was I using at the time? I think I was using two GTX 760s in SLI when that happened. So now I know my rendering time now with the NVIDIA RTX 2080 is definitely a lot lower.
Yeah, man, you're gonna get some good performance out of that 2080. And now? Let me ask you: did you ever take those 2060s? Like, did you keep them, or did you take them back, or what did you do with those?
Well, I have two 2080s, but I added a 2060 to another computer, so I still have them.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I still kept all this stuff, and it's funny you said that because those are some videos I definitely need to try to edit and upload this week because it'll really throw my timeline off if I show the video with me upgrading to my AMD chip and I didn't do the video with the open box of the RTX 2080, which was last year because I was still using a 4820 Intel at that time. So that was actually shoot, it was almost a year ago when I got that. So you can see
Oh wow.
I've been dragging. Yeah, I was looking at the dates. I was like, wait a minute, because it was right before E3, and so yeah, that's when
Okay.
I got the
Okay.
2080s.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember when you said that you was getting those too. Okay.
But honestly, I don't think that Nvidia will have any competition for quite some time because just as you know, I know we talked about this as far as what AMD was doing with their video cards with that whole BIOS thing. You know, as far as if you update the BIOS or it'll give you some more performance, which I really disagree with. I mean, if you're buying an item, you should be able to unlock whatever true performance is really there, not have it hidden in a BIOS. And I think, with Nvidia, remember they still downscale or hold back a lot of their performance because with the new not SLI but NVLink, you're not getting the true performance out of a graphics card, even if you put two 2080s supers in NVLink together. You're just not going to get it. So looking at AMD to see exactly what they could possibly do for as far as competition. I just don't see it when companies are already bottlenecking their own products to keep you buying more cars for the next few years.
Yeah, Nvidia's been doing that for a while, and really, they could continue to do that because nobody else is bringing them competition. Like, there's no competition when it comes to Nvidia's 2080 Ti.
Right.
Period. And Nvidia is so smart. Like, you see how they released I just remember it like it was yesterday. It was like I can remember buying the new RTX cards. I remember buying initially. I bought a 2070. It was EVGA 2070. It was like Ultra XC, and then I took the 2070 back and got the 2080.
Right.
Because I wanted that extra, the extra increase in performance. And then it was like, what, maybe 7 months later, they was like, oh yeah, we're coming out with the Super. And I'm like, what? it's like, what do you mean you're coming out with a Super? It was like, and so now, and so then that's when I realized, I was like, the Supers are what the actual RTX cards were supposed to be. Right. From a performance standpoint. And so, like, the 2080 Super is really a beast of a card. The 2080 Ti is so far ahead of the game when it comes to graphics. It's still like a 30 to 40% increase over the 2080 Super, which is crazy. So, until AMD brings some sort of type of competition, even for the 2080 Super, we're not going to see prices go down for the 2080 Ti or even, the future variants, like no time soon.
Right.
So, like the stuff, the Ampere cards that's coming out. Now, here's my honest belief. I think in terms of raw game performance, it's probably going to be maybe a 10 to 15% increase over the super cards. Okay. But in terms of ray tracing, I think it's going to be probably a 40 to 50% increase in performance.
Yeah, I definitely have I definitely have to agree with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Because see, the biggest thing with RTX cards was about the ray tracing. And then they figured out, they was like, we're going to need some more RT cores, because whatever Nvidia is not even competing against. They're not competing against AMD from a consumer graphics, from just a consumer graphics card standpoint. They actually competing against AMD from a console standpoint, because you got the new consoles that's coming out for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. And both of the consoles have not only AMD CPUs in them, but they also have AMD graphics cards in them as well. Right. And then the graphics cards that they are going to have in those are going to be using RTX. Well, not RTX. It's going to be using ray tracing. Okay. And so, and which is the reason why I believe that they will upgrading the actual performance of the ray tracing is actually going to be a big deal with the new Ampere cards. And that's just because from a consumer level, more and more games consoles that's going to be coming out later this year, it's going to have ray tracing in it. And of course, they're not going to leave the CPU market behind, when it comes, the custom gaming system behind when it comes to stuff like that. And so what we're going to see later on this year is you're going to see a huge increase in the number of games that's going to have ray tracing in it. And they know that the new Nvidia cards are going to have to make sure that they keep up. Now, I've been hearing rumors that the new consoles are going to have processors that are equivalent to like a 3700X or 3800X in processing power, and then the actual graphics cards are going to be comparable to like a 2080 or 2080 Super. Yeah. So that's what I'm hearing. So you never know. We'll be able to see. One thing that I do like, that I want to try to figure out, is, I don't know have you saw any of Digital Foundry's any of their videos when they're doing testing with the consoles? They can actually capture the actual frame rate and everything that the consoles are giving.
I haven't seen any of those. I did see a review where somebody mentioned something about the new consoles won't be 60 frames. They'll be locked at 30. So they're going with, like, let's say 4K 30 instead of the ability to do 60 frames per second.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like I believe Xbox, I can't remember. I know it's Xbox, but not PS5. That you'll be able to get 30 frames per second, like 1080p or maybe 4K as well. But you're not going to get that 60 frames per second performance.
And see, that's always been the. It's always been the. This is why people like PC gaming,
Mm-hmm.
especially high end PC gaming, because you can be able to get a card like a 2080 Ti, and in certain games you can use a 2080 Super, and you could be able to get 4K 60,
Right.
depending on your graphic settings and stuff like that. But there's no limits.
Or at least,
You know,
or at least even you would get 1440.
but yeah, and but yeah, for the most part, you could definitely is if you got a 2080 Super, or just a 2080 RTX 2080, you're guaranteed 1440p 60
Yeah.
across the board. Pretty much no matter what game that you're doing. So, um, and you could be able to do that at ultra epic gaming settings. So, um, yeah, that's and 1440p looks awesome if you have the right monitor. So,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. I mean, they all look great. I'm just wondering, like, why don't they just? Well, I know they're trying to keep costs down, but you have to have the perfect TV. I think what they're thinking is most people probably still play on their TV. So as far as getting 60 frames per second on a 65-inch or 50-inch TV, they're probably thinking, well, 4K 30 frames per second is better than getting 1080p 60 frames per second because it does require a lot more power to run 60 frames. It's harder to do that. It's harder to run 1080p 60 frames than it is 4K 30 frames.
you think so?
I know so because what was it? Remember when Halo 5 came out and
Yeah,
and Halo 5 was what 1080p 60 frames, I believe it was. And so a lot of people kept asking, well, how come they got rid of the multiplayer where you could do the split screen? You because all the Halos were split screen. You know, Halo 1, 2, 3, and 4, like even on the Xbox 360. So when they came out with this,
yeah.
they said they had to drop that feature because they made it 1080p 60 frames. And what's interesting
Well,
about
yeah.
that, I remember when Xbox and I think the PlayStation 4 first came out, the Xbox One, they both advertised the ability to do 4K, but then kind of slowly, quietly removed that. If anybody remembers that.
Yeah, and see, it's so funny that you said that because that's one of the things that I do know with Digital Foundry,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna do some more research to see. I don't know. I don't know if they're using custom software or what, but I want to be able to. One of the things I found out a while ago is that the PlayStation 4 and also even the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One and stuff like that. Um, even though the games were not, even though they could do 4K,
Mm-hmm.
the games were not being rendered in
Mm-hmm.
4K when you were
Mm-hmm.
playing them. They were actually being up converted. So
Right,
the
right,
game,
right.
like the native resolution was like 1800p, or it was some crazy resolution where it wasn't. It was actually just being up converted to 4K, but it wasn't a native 4K resolution that you were playing at. So basically, what it allowed them to do was you could be able to play a low resolution game, but it was being up converted to 4K. And from a TV standpoint, you're playing the games, and like you said, the games was being rendered at like 30 frames per second. So it wasn't like it was putting a whole lot of pressure on the system, which they could say, okay, yeah, you can be able to play this in 4K on your 4K TV, but it wasn't a native 4K. So,
Well, and
so
and
that's
to make matters worse, in some cases, some of the games were touting 4K, but I think the gameplay was 1080p 30 frames or 1080p 60 or whatever, and then there were other scenes of the game that were probably in 4K. So from start to finish, some games were touting 4K, but only in certain instances.
yeah, yeah, which is crazy, man. That's why it's like there's always been like this big uh, this big rift between PC gamers and console gamers, and it's like because PC gamers know that was like, yeah, you haven't really played a true 4K game until you played it on PC.
True. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true, and that's another thing too because I know you couldn't even get either true 4K experience until you had certain graphics cards, and obviously those were available only on computers. Even if you had a
Yeah.
4K TV or even an 8K TV, people were saying, "Well, how can I get it?" And honestly, at the time when the technology was first rolling out, you had graphics cards that could help put that in, output 4K, 4K 60 resolution in frames per second, and then you had the GoPro cameras. You had the GoPro cameras, and then of course you had other cameras as well, film cameras that could do it. But other than actual consoles or even Blu-ray players or DVD players, so to speak, you couldn't get that, or even using like your direct TV box or anything. You have to go fiber optic in order to achieve some of those resolutions.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're right about that. Definitely right about that.
So yeah, I know the options were very limited. But guys, I think Will probably has to go now. I know he told me he had 30 minutes, and right now we're about 36 minutes in, and we're definitely on different time zones. So Will, you want to say anything in closing?
Man, I would just like to say we definitely got to do this again. I know we got some. There's so much tech and so much stuff that's going to be coming out over the next couple of months, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to the next meetup, man. And we definitely got to find some time where we definitely got to get together from a business standpoint. I know I got some time that's going to be coming up probably later on this year where I may be able to make it out your way. So we'll talk it up.
Or hopefully this thing is over. We can make it out to CES next year together.
Absolutely.
You know what we could do too is I have a bunch of CES video footage. We could get together and compare that maybe on another time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I got a bunch of stuff from all the the thermal take booths and Corsair and LG and Samsung, just a ton of stuff from last year that I never got a chance to either go over, and honestly they still haven't come out on the market yet, so we could definitely touch bases on that.
Absolutely. Okay.
All right, guys, if you guys want to definitely check out Wilcreatives, I'll leave a link in the description to his video. Make sure you guys check him out. He does everything tech on his channel, computer modding and everything like that. So make sure you guys hit him up, and he's also on social media too.
Absolutely. Yep. At Wilcreatives.
All right, perfect, guys.
Talk to you guys soon.
All right, guys, you guys have a good night. Bye bye.